couple things I want to tell you. You know, I'm a psychologist, and I've been in practice for 14 years. And during those 14 years, there was a period of time that I went to work for Dr. Phil McGraw. Does his name sound familiar? Dr. Phil. And a lot of people know Dr. Phil more now because he has a very popular show. But before he started doing his own show was the time that I worked for him. So we're going to talk about your SMART zone because I want to make sure that I help you all find the best way to be effective on the job. And the benefit of that is you're also going to find you're going to have more satisfaction in your personal life.
If there were two words I could use to describe Dr. Fletcher, it would be enthusiasm and energetic.
She was very convincing and just had a great quality about her presentation, very lively, really kept my attention, and it seemed that she kept everybody's attention pretty well tonight.
When Susan Fletcher spoke, I felt like she was speaking right to me, and I mean not the whole audience, but she really touched me, she really motivated me.
You can relate to what she was talking about.
Dr. Fletcher generates the attitude necessary to encourage and support the desired performance. She empowers audiences to accept not only the realities of diversity and change, but also the challenges of integrity and personal adjustment.
I want you to have a sense of satisfaction. And I want you to feel like it's been crazy, but it's been productive. And I am having satisfaction at work as well as in my personal life. So here's my challenge to you. Keep your sanity sustained. Balance work and family life.
As a licensed psychologist, professional speaker, wife, and mother of three, Dr. Fletcher understands the challenges of multiple roles and expectations at home and on the job.
I bet you expected to hear a little bit about stress tonight. And I'm the mother of 3 kids. So I have lots of stories related to that. But one of the things that I found all the years that I've been practicing at this point is that stress can derail you too. It can get you out of your SMART zone. If people were to ask me, Dr. Fletcher, what's the one thing we should teach the next generation? You know what I would tell you? It's not necessarily communication. What's the best thing we should teach them? I wouldn't say communication necessarily, although that's very important. I wouldn't necessarily say self-esteem. I wouldn't necessarily say respect for others, and those are all wonderful things. You know what I would say is adaptability. How many of you have had more than 2 job positions, 2 different companies, in the last 2 years? How many of you have had more than 4 job positions in the last 10 years? I grew up in a family that my father worked for the same company from the time he was 18 until he retired last year. Huh? 18 to 65. He worked for the same company. You know how unusual that is? How many of you had a parent that worked for the same company or stayed in the same profession? Is that the way it is today? So if you're not adaptable and you can't manage change, you're going to have difficulty. Do you know that when companies are cutting back, they don't necessarily look at the people who can't do the job as much as they're also looking at the people that can't get along and can't manage change? Because that's what the world is about. So if we don't teach our children to manage change, we're doing them a disservice.
There are many ways Dr. Fletcher enhances people's lives with her message. She is a frequently quoted expert for a variety of publications and news reports throughout the world.
Take the test and they feel like this is a piece of cake. But if they're more...
Dr. Fletcher tests technology that's objective. So it's a way that we can see how a child does actually taking the test.
We used to be a child. And you remember what it was like to be a child? Sometimes days were tough. Sometimes days were easier. And everybody is always saying, I hear a lot of people in my office say, I wouldn't want to be a kid today with all the things going on. And so by the time somebody comes in my office, there are things that have already happened. There are habits that have already been developed. And so we're going to talk about the conversation I have a lot of times with people that work with children, because they ask me, what is up with that? They ask me about the behavioral and emotional symptoms that we see in children that make us concerned, that make us feel like we need to know more. And a lot of very well-meaning people who work with children, sometimes they make a diagnosis, and as far as I know, they don't have the degree to do that, and they mean well. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. I see children all the time that come in, and the parents bring them in because they say, the teacher told us to come because they think my child has ADHD or ADD. All the time we see that in my office. And can you imagine what it's like for a parent to be told by a teacher, something is wrong with your child, something that only medication can solve? And by the way, ADHD doesn't always require medication. So can you imagine being told by a teacher, something's wrong with your child? So what we're going to talk about is what's special about working with children. When the question comes up, what is up with that? We're also going to talk about some of the challenges related to working with children when they have some kind of emotional or behavioral disorder. The ones that come to mind that are the most common are ADHD, depression, anxiety, and other kinds of behavioral disorders, something called oppositional defiant disorder. And you know there's no medication for that. And I bet everybody in this room on a good day can be pretty oppositional defiant.
You know, I worked for Phil McGraw, and most people know him as Dr. Phil. And when I worked with him, he was just beginning his career on Oprah. And one of the things I learned from him the most is the importance of relationships in business. That you don't just get into business with people for the short-term project. You do it for the long term. You make a difference so you can both win from the relationship. I want my audience to feel educated. I want them to feel like they're smarter for coming. I want them to feel like they learned something. I want them to feel like there's nothing they can't accomplish if they just put forth effort.
Through her keynote presentations and training workshops, Dr. Fletcher emphasizes the use of facts, the development of skills, and how to stay productive to improve the bottom line.
One of the things that makes me different as a speaker in order to help people in an educational setting is to make sure that they know the money they spend for the event is an investment in their employees. I know when I go to an education setting and I talk about clinical diagnoses and emotional and behavioral problems with children, I know those people need the information and I must provide value. I know that they have made a major decision to hire me and have me there in order to help their employees do their jobs better. I want to affect their bottom line, and I also want to make a difference.
I think the key takeaway for me when I listen to Dr. Fletcher is that her message is so universal. That when she talks about balancing work and family, this is a major issue for women, but it's clearly an issue for men today, because we're all struggling with how to succeed in our own dreams as business people, but also having a family and having healthy relationships. It's a powerful message for anyone to hear.
Dr. Fletcher knows how to deliver a message in a language people get. She gets it, and you can get it too.
I'd like nothing more than to join you at your next event to share my insight and experience. I personally guarantee your satisfaction with my content and presentation. I'm Dr. Susan Fletcher. Thank you.